Hi there, everyone. Scott and Lars back for another review and analysis for the Apothecary Diaries, brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And is it possible to make sure that a body never decays? This is the sumptuous question that's been posed to our detective Maomao.
I mean, nowadays that answer is a positive yes, because there's like a whole science with like embalming and everything. But like that stuff goes back to the Egyptians too. So like, really shouldn't be that surprised that that's possible back in like ancient history days.
Yeah, but we do know that this empire doesn't take out all of the organs and then dry out the body through a mummification process. So otherwise they would have brought that up and be like, "Oh yeah, sure. He's looking the same as he should be. He should be well preserved for the next 100 years."
Yep, and that's what's weird in this episode. You're like, okay, how did that happen? We're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's kind of talk through the story first.
Yes, but real quick, before we do, just a quick reminder that, once more, we are hiding frogs throughout this video. The first person to comment with the correct number of frogs will get to add their very own frog from Camille herself to this fantastic list and array of other frogs that you should be seeing right now on your screen. So, again, if you wish to get your very own hand-drawn frog from Camille herself, make sure that you can't be the first to comment with the correct number of frogs below, and you will earn yourself a frog. Now, with that being said, let's dive into the events of this episode. So, in this episode, we get two different things happening, two different main story points. One is that the Empress Dowager is coming to throw a fancy tea party with all of the other concubines. Woohoo! Not only that, though, there's loads of rumors now swirling around Maomao. She has become quite popular, and not just for the Emperor, and as we come to learn, the Empress Dowager, but also within the rear palace. But they're not always the kinds of stories and rumors that she would want to have pinned to her name, such as the crazy girl that goes off to the northern part of the rear palace and goes looking for bugs. And this story lands Maomao into a little bit of hot water with Mistress Hongyang, who's all like, "Why are you doing this? Why are you scaring other women? Why are you causing all of these problems for Lady Gyokuyo? You will be punished." And they punish Maomao by putting her into a shed, and she is absolutely thrilled by this because there's so much more room to put all of my stuff. I love that little bit, and there's actually some great cultural humor behind that we'll get to in the analysis. So Maomao's doing absolutely fine being put out into the shed, being exiled out of the main house, as it were. However, she does promise that to not cause too many problems for Lady Gyokuyo, especially with the Empress Dowager dropping in for a visit. So she goes to find Shusui, and they're like, "Hey, what the heck are you doing?" Of course, Shusui is happily collecting all of these bugs, some interesting bugs that are not native to this particular area and have somehow made their way into their palace, possibly tagging along like cockroaches or rats with the envoys in their caravan, which is an interesting and creepy and disgusting thought to have. So you've got that going on, but the big part of this episode is that the Empress Dowager wants to speak to Maomao directly, and has arranged for a preliminary visit to Lady Gyokuyo to have the opportunity to isolate Maomao and to speak to her directly and ask for her assistance in finding out whether or not she actually cursed the previous emperor, her husband. And so Maomao is then taken by one of the head mistresses to the Empress Dowager, and is led to a special apartment complex area, even set apart from all the others, which is still kept immaculately preserved and clean. There's no dust anywhere, even though it doesn't seem like anyone's been living there. And there she is presented to the apartments that the previous Empress Dowager, or at that time the Empress Regent, and the previous Emperor occupied before they passed away. The rooms have not been messed with at all. No one's allowed into them. However, when the room is shown to Maomao, it's an absolute mess. It smells weird. It looks like there's stuff for paints and painting just splashed all over the place. It looks like a madman was in there. And the question is, was he truly cursed? Because the now Empress Dowager could not stand her husband. His weirdness, the way he was so close to his aging mother, how he took very, very young girls as wives and concubines. She did not like him, and she wished that he would just go away. She kept wishing that again and again and again, and sure enough, he went away, and then his body has not decayed properly at all. Even after a year of being put into the tomb, where, yes, it's cold, which would help preserve a body, but really a body's best preserved either in ice or in honey. Yeah, you don't want to put a corpse in honey. But it will preserve it. His body should have moldered. Bugs should have gotten into it somehow. And yet he looks like he was just put in yesterday. It's seriously creepy. And Maomao is on the case to figure out what happened. And that's pretty much the episode.
Yeah, this one, we keep saying that, oh, this episode is like answering the mystery, or this episode is set up. And I feel like they're all there in all of these episodes. Every episode set up, every episode like provides us more answers. And this one especially, but this one, the payoff is more along the lines of Maomao's reputation has grown within the Rear Palace, specifically with the Emperor and the Empress Dowager, and like the ladies in the Rear Palace, they've heard rumors, not just of her, but like of Shisui with the bugs, but like that kind of stuff spread around. Like you have a gossip network built into this location, and somebody says something, somebody does something, and somebody sees it, it gets passed all the way around, like we saw with the lady dancing on the wall in the first season. Like that got gossiped about and passed around to everybody within the Rear Palace. And this was very much the same, but like Maomao is actually based on truth, and the fact that like she solved all these different things has spread a reputation to certain people, specifically in this time the current Empress Dowager.
And to build on that, this gossip network helps to, now that we see it more in practice, really helps to solidify the concern that the Jade Pavilion and the Crystal Pavilion have for Lady Gyokyo and for Lady Liwa, because it will, once anyone realizes that they're pregnant, it's going to spread like wildfire. Mm-hmm. And because there is at least one person, if not multiple people, in the Rear Palace who are covertly teaching others how to make poisons and to attack the family of the Emperor, once that knowledge is made public in any kind of way, or is even gossiped about a little bit, it could very easily make it back to that to this assassin, and they will put other plans into motion to attack the Emperor's family. So it's a very real threat, and it's one that they can't just simply shut off like turning off water. There's no turning off the flow of gossip within the Rear Palace.
Yeah. Well, at this point, we're still unsure of who's kind of puppeteering all of these schemes that are going on within the Rear Palace. And so it's something that, like, there's that sense of underlying tension that's created when you do stuff like that. We don't know who the big bad is here. And it's likely we won't know for a good while because it hasn't become relevant to where the characters are at in the story quite yet. I mean, it's relevant. Let me rephrase that. It's relevant, but it's not as important to what's currently happening. Because Maomao's getting pulled a bunch of different ways. She's getting pulled by her past, by her family, by Jinshi, by the Emperor, and now the Empress Dowager. Bunch of different directions, and we really get to see that, like, Maomao, even though she's very much her own person, she kind of follows her own path. She's still at the mercy of, like, the broader flows of the story of the characters around her, because she's still just this little servant girl in the rear palace.
Yeah, there's that, and there's also, as you said, like, she's being pulled all these different ways. There's not been enough time for her to really solve some mysteries that have been presented to her. And as already been shown, she has that nervous tick of shying away from fully confronting the truth of what kind of mystery's been presented to her. And this has kind of created a bit of a traffic jam effect, where we have the question of what's up with the envoys? What is the truth behind the past? Oh, there's so much more to the rear palace architecturally. Like, there's all these other buildings. What kinds of histories and secrets do they carry? What about Jinji? And then also, like, again, who is the person within the rear palace who is orchestrating all of these attacks on the Emperor's family? And now we're presented with the question of whether or not the previous emperor was cursed by the Empress Dowager. And so you have all these mysteries that are kind of building on up. And no, I don't think that we should expect some big moment of clarity where Maomao solves all of these things all at once. More like, as you said, this is building up the tension. There's all of these different matters and problems pressing in from every side. And as Maomao becomes more popular or more well-known within the palace, this means that she can't just simply be an observer and a helper like she was in season 1. She is now a participant and a player in these mysteries and schemes. Whether or not she wants to be, she has been drawn into this world, which now means that the personal stakes for Maomao are increasing. And that also helps to build the tension.
Yeah, it suddenly becomes a whole lot more life or death, because there's a lot more personal stakes involved for her life specifically now that she's got the attention of these different people. And I feel like that's a very important, like, part of the story. Like you're saying, like, before she was just helping out. Like, she was just somebody on the sidelines that could share a bit of advice or, like, could puzzle something out real quick. And then it was up to Jinshi and, like, Gao Shun and, like, whoever was involved to actually fix the problem. But now we're getting to a point where, no, Maomao's going to be involved in that process too. And how she handles that is going to help define her character going forward.
Oh, I'm so excited about that. and to connect this to something that we've talked about with this season and what I talked about a lot in my reviews for the previous season, in terms of the autonomy of the women within this world that Maomao inhabits, because a lot of the women are not given quite the same positions of power as the men. The men are indeed in charge of most of the stuff going on. And we get to see the women claw out and carve out opportunities for themselves, their identities, their self-worth, moments of autonomy. And what we get to see through Maomao's experience is that the more autonomy, the more freedom that you get, the greater the consequences of any adverse actions or choices become. And that would help to explain another reason why Maomao might shirk away or shy away from from pursuing certain mysteries even further, or being a greater presence within the rear palace. It's not that she can't be. I think that we've seen enough of Maomao to realize that she's very that she feels very proud of and very confident in her skills, but she recognizes the more she utilizes them, the more of a name she makes for herself, the more it draws her in. And that's potentially dangerous.
That is potentially dangerous. And she also has kind of the hangman's noose of an example that that's what happened to Odo Men with like getting kicked out of the rear palace in the first place, because like he full on got like his reputation completely destroyed. But it was more than that, because like what, they cut his leg off?
No, they didn't cut off his leg. They snip.
Well, I thought it was already snip because he was working in the rear palace.
No, they actually well, let's say this is okay. So someone can tell me if they got a different translation than I did for in the subtitles, because what I watched with the subtitles on is that Maomao said that he had been castrated specifically to serve as the doctor in the rear palace in a moment of need, that he had not yet been made a eunuch before that. But they're like, you're so smart, you're so brilliant, your ability to take care of other people health wise is fantastic, but you're a dude. We can't let you into the rear palace. That's what I got out of this episode. But the translations, as I've seen, have been slightly different across like different platforms. So if anyone saw something that said otherwise, then I'd like to know, because then that would then mean that the translation I got was wonky.
Okay, that makes sense. But like still, like he got punished for like what happened in the rear palace before, and Maomao was able to see that example. And so she's like, well, like women aren't supposed to be doing this kind of stuff in the first place, but if I mess up, I'll really mess up, because they'll come down on me harder than they did with her adopted father. Which, it's like she's already starting to worry about this, especially from the previous episode leading into this. But now she's being asked by the Empress Dowager to like solve a mystery, basically. And she doesn't necessarily have Jinshi's protection in this one either. So there's a bit of a risk involved there too.
And for those people who might be like, well, why is this so dangerous? Because if the Emperor is asking for her, and if the Empress Dowager is asking for her, then of course she then seems to have the protection of the royal family. The problem is that if she reveals something that could damage the royal family, she'll be silenced, which usually means death. If she reveals a secret of an enemy to the royal family, that means that this enemy, if it does exist, will come after her, because she's proven to be an asset to the imperial family. And what if, as we saw in the previous episode, where it's like, well, she seems to be a really smart one, why not incorporate her into the royal line? Maomao does not want to be a concubine. She doesn't want to, and she's already tried to run away from being a woman of the night back at the red light district. So she does. This is clearly not the kind of line of work that she wants to be in. But she could be folded into that aspect of the rear palace if she keeps making a name for herself. So there's a danger. There's a danger in this, because if she just wants to be Maomao the Apothecary, being in the crosshairs of the Emperor and the Empress Dowager means that there is danger, either physically or to the lifestyle that she wishes to have.
I think that's a big key that a lot of people don't realize when they're like coming up with characters, is like, it's not just a physical danger to them, it's a danger to, like you said, to their lifestyle, to the way they want to live their lives. And so they may have a goal that they're trying to reach, but there's also going to be like risk. There's going to be people that are going to be fighting you either for that same goal, or are going to be fighting against you because they don't want you to reach that goal. And I feel like thinking about those kind of things leads to better character creation and better plot as you're creating them.
Oh yeah, it's actually a whole lot of fun while writing for the Legend of the Ten Lords. More so actually than writing whether or not a certain character might get killed or not, was writing the politics, quote unquote politics, of high school popularity. Who's dating who? Who's friends with whom? Who, like, what weirdo or what cool kid have you invited into your life, and how will that affect you? Because you got Jessica, one of the main characters, who is trying to basically solidify her awesome popularity by dating the guy who likes her from the football team. So many people like him, so many people like her. This is going to be great. Their friends are going to get along splendidly until it doesn't happen. And when that dating opportunity crashes and burns, I mean, she's dealing with whether or not people are going to murder her. But she's a teenager who's also fearing and getting to watch then as her school life and her social life come crashing down and burning around her because of one guy. And that's and while yes, death is the prospect of death is greater than the prospect of losing your popularity. Let's be honest here. Popularity is a big thing for some people, and losing that could be devastating to their identity. And as you said, Scott, thinking about the lifestyles that other people want or what's really important to them, losing that could be monumental to their character development.
Well, I think the key word there is monumental, because like it's going to shake up who they are. So often enough, you'll get a story where like either they'll get what they wanted and find that it's not what they really actually wanted in their lives. So like that's what shakes them up, or like it's taken away from them. They're never able to achieve it. So they have to become a different person because of it. Both are very viable, like very fun ways of writing stories.
Or to bring it back to the Apothecary Diaries, I think a really fun example of this is back in the first season when Lacan comes into the picture. This is Maomao's actual father, and he wants her by his side. This is what he's been wanting basically ever since he found out that she had been born. And we get to learn the emotional reasons for that, which is pretty heartbreaking, especially when we get the full story of Lacan. But for Maomao, she doesn't want anything to do with him. This is the guy that, as far as she has learned, as far as she's been raised and told, this is the man who abandoned her and her mother. This is not her real father. The real father is Loman, who raised her and taught her to be who she is today. And she cares far more for that guy. And for Lacan to now have an opportunity to take that away from her and put her into his household, for him, that's almost everything that he's ever wanted, to have the family that was denied to him by circumstance and his own choice. For Maomao, that's definitely what she doesn't want, because that would take away her connection to her adopted father, and it would almost certainly steal away her independence and her ability to be an apothecary.
True. But like part of like the original kind of starting point to this series is she got that choice taken away from her in the originally, because she was stolen away by basically just by some random people to sell into the rear palace, and she's a little miffed about the whole experience. And it's only because of her like knowledge and her skills that she's even able to break out of that like original like bindings that she had around her.
That's correct. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. So hopefully for those writers out there who are watching and listening to this helps to give you a little bit of an idea of how you can bring out more of a character and give the character like some good solid progression without the stakes needing to be the world is at stake, death is on the line. There's so much more you can do with characters beyond just the ultimate aspects of life and existence.
I agree.
Now, there is something that I had said earlier that I was going to come back to, some cultural humor in this episode. And
Hmm.
this takes some understanding of at least I'm pretty certain this was also the same in the Chinese court, but this was definitely the case in the Japanese court that banishment was considered worse than death. There'd be
Mm.
some people who are like, just cut off my head. Please don't send me away. That's the worst thing you could do to me. And so banishment to another house or outside of the palace or outside of the city was at one point considered to be the worst thing that you could do to someone else because you've removed them from their place of belonging. They are shunned and ostracized for a while. And in a society where identity and connections and communication, perception of you are very important, being banished, even for just a little while, and even if it's just to a shed, could be absolutely heartbreaking. And especially in the rear palace, where a lot of these women are trying to appear beautiful to catch the eye of the emperor. They want to be healthy and happy. Being consigned to a shed is just dirty and degrading. Maomao doesn't care about any of that because she's not interested in becoming a concubine. She's not interested in attracting anyone's eye. And there's more room in this shed for all of her hobbies and for all of her apothecary work. So being banished into the shed is just like, sweet. Let me just move my bed into here and I'm ready to go. And so the women are all very disappointed because it's not working. Maomao is so on a completely different level of societal understanding that a
Hmm.
punishment that should be heartrending for any other woman means nothing to her.
She's just excited about more space to do things in, and I'm like, you know what? Fair. Honestly, there's times I think about it, and I'm like, more space sounds fun, and also costs more money. So you kind of have to juggle the idea there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But hey, she gets to live on the emperor's dime, so
Hmm.
give me a shed, please.
I mean, that's all it needs. All you need to do to woo a lady is to give her a shed. Then I I mean, uh, props to you.
If that's all it takes to woo a lady, hold on a sec here. I'm going to go buy some wood and I'm going to start making a shed.
Exactly.
So, with all that being said, that's pretty much been our breakdown, our review and analysis, and a little bit of writing advice based on this episode. We would love to hear your thoughts, your insights, and the likes based on what we've just seen from episode 32 of the Apothecary Diaries. It's amazing how far we've gone in this show. But if you'd like to support everything that we do here on this channel, then please check out the books that we have published. Links for them are in the description below. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. And again, remember, if you wish to have your very own hand-drawn frog from Camille, make sure that you are the first person to comment with the correct number of frogs, and you will win yourself a frog. And until the next video, y'all, let's review all of the cryptic clues that were given to us in this episode to see what Detective Maomao will say next time. And choose.
Okini.